The big boss man said cleanup's done, signed a paper, shook hands, packed up and run. They cut the ribbon, took their prize, but the ground still burns and the river still cries.
It's the 5th day of February.
It's locked up tight, but I see the cracks in the pale moonlight. Ain't no steel strong enough, no law so bold.
It's 2025. That's the worst thing about a really good song. You don't want to stop hearing it. You can find it at James Luce's site. I have a link in the comments section to him, and there's one in the description. Hello, everybody. Welcome, everybody. I'm happy to see you. I hope you're all doing fine. I'm sure you're a lot better than I am. I got everything aches. I'm no good anymore. Mystery of mass dolphin deaths in Puntland deepens. So we're going to pick up part 2 of mass species die-off. Last night, mostly covered whales last night. Tonight's a lot of whales, insects, dolphins, bears, seals, sea lions, etc. Has Fukushima radioactive fallout broken the food chain worldwide? Japan had a major nuclear event leading to a mass species and humans die-off worldwide. And what happens with radioactive fallout? It permeates your drinking water worldwide, your food chains. And do you get heart problems, liver problems, massive amount of heart problems, liver problems, lung, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia. And this is studies they'll do after nuclear accidents, just to name a few. And this is also going to be true for the animal kingdom. You'll see the same attributes in the animal kingdom. And I took because we had a lot of ice build up last night and that, and so I wanted to go out and clear the snow off the surface today, and sure enough I slipped. And I've been asleep for the last 5 hours, in and out trying to recover on painkillers. It's just my luck, eh? You can't win them all. So I'm not going to be back tomorrow. I'll take the next few days off, try to recover. And hopefully by Sunday I'm good enough to... But I'm whacked out a little bit on painkillers tonight, so I should be okay. We'll get through a chunk of it. I don't know if we'll get through all of it. We got a lot of die-offs to get through. I was trying to get ready so we can get out with the skidoo and get out and do some research, some field studies. Because the snow is a great opportunity, right? You'll see any tracks in the snow, birds, moose, and animals. You won't find migratory birds anymore. In the last 4 years, they've disappeared completely. And that's basically true worldwide now. So let's cover as many stories as we can get through. And you know what painkillers do to your stomach too, right? It really upsets you, don't it? That's all good. We'll be okay. Let's keep going here. So, the NONO reports in 2014, 2015, 2016 for the pilot whales and those types of species, they would report on them, their health, they would report on their stomach content. And what they were finding were they were emaciated and had empty stomachs. But around 2017, 2018, they stopped reporting on that. And then if you look at New Zealand had some spectacular mass beachings. And then the pictures that they were showing, you were seeing a lot of peanut heads, which means they were emaciated. But that doesn't mean it was only there. We've seen the same thing symmetrical in North America and too. Excuse me. And so this was an interesting story that came out last week. I thought the date was there, but it's not. Might show up in a bit. This was Somalia. The sea washed more than 100 dead dolphins. Cause of death remains unknown. Pre-Fukushima, it was very unusual, if not almost unheard of, to have a group of dolphins committing suicide, so to speak. But what it is, they've run out of food. So far we know their deaths are not caused by entanglements in nets, as they had no wounds or cuts. As the industry has put a lot of effort in trying to blame the mass die-offs of whales on ship strikes. But when you look, because we cover it all the time, so when you look at the numbers, it's about 1,200 whale ship strikes. Not all of the whales would have died since 2007. That was up till 2023. We covered that extensively last night. And then for those who might not be familiar with this, how this whole, because I'm not doing much of an intro tonight, obviously, this is part 2. And not last night's show, but the show before that, for the first half an hour, 40 minutes, was a perfect intro for this stuff. We'll cover some basic stuff coming up, hopefully, here in a bit. And only dolphins were affected. Researchers suspect the cause could have been toxic substances, which is true because the nuclear industry from Italy, I believe it was, had dumped a lot of nuclear waste off the coast of Somalia in their nursery on top of that. And they actually had drums of nuclear waste after storms washing up on their beaches. And that is, ever since, they've actually scuttled freighters with nuclear stuff, high-level nuclear waste on board of it from Italy. But we're not seeing other species. So there's something else going on. And most likely they're starving to death. That's the consensus we've been following for many years post-Fukushima. On Thursday, over 100 dolphins washed ashore in a small village. And the picture's not good enough to be able to extrapolate something out of it. The ministry conveyed there might have been a change in the conditions of the seawater leading to food shortage. So it's quite interesting that they're suggesting the dolphins might have starved to death. That is quite interesting. Or like to try, it's a conjecture for sure, but the fact that they even suggested a food shortage, and they don't understand apparently that Fukushima happened. More than 30 dolphins dead following a Russian tanker oil spill. It was 2 tankers, 2 old tankers that probably shouldn't have been on the ocean. There's 61 dead whales and dolphins and seals and sea lions and stuff like that. In the 3 weeks since the fuel oil spilled out of 2 stricken tankers. There was 2 tankers, my goodness. It's so heartbreaking. And Vladimir Putin had called it an ecological disaster himself. So, yeah, you got 2 oil tankers break open. Man, my goodness. Idiots. They are suggesting half the deaths occurred before the spill. So we could be looking at more starvation events up in that area. 4 rare dolphins. Did I say red? 4 rare dolphins. Painkillers for you. 4 rare dolphins found dead on the Mississippi Barrier Island. Yeah, there's a sheet of ice out there with a little light fluff of snow on it this morning. It was light snow falling. I should have just left it alone, I suppose, but nobody else is going to do it for me, so I don't go deal with it. It's my routine. I had to go out every day for a couple of hours. I'm going to put that off for a while now, just recover. Says their staff responded to a stranding event on the island after a group of dolphins were discovered and reporting to the stranding hotline. There's so many die-offs after Fukushima, they got hotlines now worldwide for stranding. Says these dolphins usually inhabit deeper water, so it's a surprise to find them together on one of the barrier islands. Typically, whatever they find is considered 10%. So there's probably 40 dolphins that sank and died. Necropsy is being performed in collaboration with the Mississippi State University. The Mississippi River, of course, is incredibly contaminated. From a nuclear accident they had up the river at... I can't remember the name of the site for some reason. A veterinary medicine to determine the cause of death. They're not showing you any good pictures. Well, they've been up there for a while. I've seen those before in real life, that kind of scenario where they're buried in the sand. That's a pretty good indication they've been there for a while. I could be wrong, obviously. But we're not even able to get a good picture. And so it looks like their skin is pretty shiny, so that one looks like he's swelled up. We're not seeing any signs of birds picking at him or anything like that, any predators. And we've seen that symmetrically now for the last 7-8 years. The predators don't seem to go near the strandings. 3 dolphins. Now, it's not true all the cases, obviously, right? We do have a story coming up, I think, where there's bears feeding on a whale up in Alaska. I'm not sure if we'll make it to that far tonight. We've got a lot to get through. 3 dolphins found dead in Florida. Died from the bird flu, testing finds. And that dolphins now. Like bird flu has been around for millions of years and hundreds of thousands of generations of itinerations of the species. And has never jumped to any other species. You know why? Because it's a bird flu. They're looking for anything to blame the die-offs on. And it used to be domoic acid. Now it's the bird flu. But the reality of it is starvation is the typical one, as we demonstrated clearly last night's show. 3 bottlenose dolphins found dead in Florida a year ago died from bird flu. That's very suspect, of course, right? Because clearly a dolphin is not a bird. Were found dead in the Indian River Lagoon. And this story is this is their opinion. This is not a fact. Could have caused neurological symptoms that possibly created confusion or even caused them to drown in shallow water. The Hub's SeaWorld Research Institute. SeaWorld. And we know the dolphins in the lagoons will commonly feed on schools of fish. Communally with large groups of birds. So it's possible they might be how they acquired the virus. Yeah, well, birds will follow dolphins around because dolphins will group together sardines and herring and stuff like this, anchovies, and then they'll attack it and they'll drive them towards the surface and the birds will be diving in there feeding, right? And anything that escapes but is wounded is easy picking for the birds. And that's just the cycle of life. Like they're making all of these desperate suggestions, but they're not really backing it up. Right? There's a scattered one will come out and make this assertion, but the rest of them are clearly not. So what's the more likely story? Is starvation. The birds will actually shed the virus through saliva, mucus, feces. So the dolphins would have to come in contact with one of those, said the nut job, said the traders. Researchers don't know of any other cases of bird flu impacting dolphins in Florida or anywhere else on the planet. Like they'll send all the species, every community that sends the species to this certain laboratory, this government laboratory, and the laboratory will come back and say bird flu. But if they send it somewhere else, the laboratories will say starvation. So what's going on is that single laboratory is clearly compromised. Dead melon-headed whales washed up on Broome Beach under investigation. Is that Australia? I can't remember. He's got a really skinny tail back there. 3 melon-headed whales washed up in Kimberley Beach. Yeah, that's Australia. There's no damage. Have been removed from the beach and disposed of. I wonder what they've done with them. They said the deaths were unusual, even in tropical water. They're perfectly equipped for the marine environment. So what happened to them? And then this bizarre statement. The good thing is the scientists have been informed. I've zero confidence in scientists anymore. How can you trust these people? They're clearly compromised. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I screwed up today. 3 Indian River lagoon dolphins suspected of dying from bird flu. And that's the same story we done earlier. Suspected. Right? Suspected. That's an opinion. It's uncertain how the virus might affect a dolphin or us in the long run. It's a conjecture. It's an opinion. Famous mother orca still carrying the body of a second dead calf. Remember that? We were doing research expeditions in British Columbia at that point. And when the same mother was carrying around a dead orca for like 2 weeks, was it? And this one is the same mother doing it again. Famous mother orca still carrying the body of a second dead calf. I think it was 17 days or something. Was again spotted swimming with the remains of her newborn on January the 10th. That's up near Seattle, Washington. Maybe she's wearing it as a hat. I'm surprised the scientists didn't come out and say that. They're so disgusting. A mother killer whale whose calf died more than 2 weeks ago was spotted recently in waters in Victoria, BC. Victoria, BC is a disgusting area in Canada. Still carrying the carcass of her newborn. She's the same whale that made world headlines in 2018 when she spent 17 days carrying her first newborn calf around in a similar manner. And I was coming down the coastline at the end of my expedition for 4 months when that was happening. It was like 2 weeks to get down from Alaska back down to Vancouver Island. We were researching now. We've done that for 6 years, 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean without coming home. Researchers have said the behavior is an apparent act of grief and that J35 has now lost 2 of her 4 documented calves. 2 of her 4 documented calves. And she carried 2 of them around on her head for weeks. Imagine how much stress that is. She can't go feeding, obviously, or anything. Yeah, something else. Yeah, 17 days. This was published 6 days ago. My apologies. She carried around a dead baby whale for 17 days. It's extraordinary. They estimated, and the majority of that particular group of whales have been studied heavily, and the ones that are dying are young breeders and females, and the majority of them under severe emaciation, which is interesting because they're they're the apex predator, right? So they eat something like 300 different species. They eat halibut, and birds, and octopus, and whatever they want, right? So how do they end up emaciated? Well, radioactive poisoning. Shark and crocodile warning as the 10 melon-headed whales found dead on Kimberley Beach. This is 10 more in a different spot on Kimberley Beach, which is Australia, I'm pretty sure. Ten melon-headed whales have now been found dead north of Broome, because Broome was where they found 4, right? So that's 14. We know a lot of the animals, the marine species, are going up to Australia, and then they make the loop eventually, and then they head back down south, which is like 10,000 kilometer trip or something, right, both ways. And they have no fat reserve. They're emaciated typically. I don't know what's going on. They're very... the Australians are the worst ones to try to get information from the media. I love the Australian people, but the media is despicable. Melon-headed whales are a species not commonly sighted along the near shore. They're an offshore species. So typically, you can look at their tail. When you see the indentation on the tail, see how that's grooved right in? That's starvation. They have no fat reserve. See that? No blubber whatsoever. That's an incredible skinny tail. That's what that is. There's those abrasions and lesions they're seeing are because it washed up alive. But I love those pictures because you can see this clear emaciation. There's nothing but bones there. There was a whale watcher found lost at sea for 67 days. Never had a kicker. He went out 37 plus miles offshore without a kicker, a spare engine. Now he's being charged with, I guess, manslaughter or something. His cousin and his nephew or something end up dying. With the bodies of his relatives, 2 dead bodies. He never had a kicker engine with him. He only had just a single engine. I don't know how anybody could be that insane to go that far offshore with a single engine. Driving whales crazy. Mixed reaction as Trump links wind energy to whales' deaths. So let me explain that to you. I got a neat way of doing it. Not doing anything fast tonight, though, I noticed. I barely made the show here. Tomorrow's going to be rough, I bet you. Tomorrow's going to be a doozy when I wake up. Let me see here. Like they have let me see. Here we go. We're getting somewhere now. And let me see here. Sometimes I gotta struggle, do I? Yeah. There we go. We're in good shape. There's another headline there. There we go. So you got 7,000 humpback whales died, not from windmills, but starvation. Did a heat wave cause 7,000 humpback whales to starve to death? Yes. The heat wave was caused by Fukushima's radioactive fallout covering the entire planet. There was also a 40% drop in Pacific gray whales. They died of starvation. 10,350. So you have not a 7,000 whales, humpback whales they're talking about, was a study because they have pictures they figured of all the humpback whales, and they never showed up at their migratory spot. And they used their AI, right, to flush out what was there and what wasn't there, and they were left with over 7,000 whales. And the assumption was they starved to death. We know they starved to death because the food chain is broken. And we know that because of the research expeditions we've done. We covered a bit of that last night at the beginning of the last night's show. So this was 7,000 plus, and the 7,000 are the plus on top of a 6-year still ongoing unusual mortality event for humpback whales, and for minke whales, and for fin whales, and for sperm whales, for gray whales, for including this is the same spot as that baby whale being carried around. It's the same group. Was emaciated. Many of the group were emaciated and slowly died. And so the 7,000 humpback whales were on top of an unusual mortality event that was already 6 years old. So you're talking around 10,000. There was around 1,000 culverted beak whales. None of these died at wind farms, okay? Just bear with me. Just to try to give you a little bit more context on that. 10 sperm whales. That was just one stranding. There was a huge amount of sperm whales. Last year was 14 between Australia and New Zealand. There's an unusual mortality event for right whales, for the minke whales, for the culverted beak whales, for the humpback and grey whales, for quite a few species, isn't it? We're also seeing mass starvation events for seals and sea lions. Go back to the story that started all this. Driving whales crazy. Whales will just move out of that area, right? And they typically didn't go into those areas. They're only in there because they can't find food on their 10,000 kilometer migratory route. And so they're usually, when you find them, they're very emaciated. This one is not very healthy, period. But the media is very careful in trying to blame it on tin cans and pop bottles. And so we got exceptional censorship tonight, I notice. Again, 12 viewers, really, on a show I've been doing for over a decade. 12 people. 12 people. Has Fukushima radioactive fallout broken the food chain worldwide, leading to a mass species extinction event? And the correct answer is yes, absolutely, positively, without a shadow of a doubt. Insects might bug you, but they're necessary for our survival. Without insects, many of the ecosystem services would not function. And I don't think you have to explain the importance of insects on the food, right? 70 to 90% of the plants need some form of assistance from pollinators. We commonly think of bees as pollinators. Other insect pollinators are butterflies, moths, beetles, flies, wasps, in addition to vertebrate birds and bats. It's a $235 billion industry dependent upon pollinators. The United Kingdom is so decimated from radioactive fallout. Now, the interesting thing about United Kingdom was they after Chernobyl, they closed 9,400 farms. Around 400 are still closed today from radioactive fallout. And there's an incredible amount of diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries from radioactive fallout. I see America, the numbers just came out for excess cancer in the United States is 2 million excess cancers from what they would normally expect to have this year, or 2024. Japan, the first year, had 865,000 excess cancers. Cancer is not the only thing, of course. Cancer is usually latent. So they got a project to create a new insect superhighway. It's hard to like the media. It's just they make it really difficult to like these people at all. They misrepresent so much. A new project to boost insect population. They got to boost the insect population. The United Kingdom is, along with France, are considered responsible for contaminating the Antarctic with radioactive fallout from the fuel facilities, fuel reprocessing facilities at Sellafield and Donneray and La Hague in France. Jesus, I can't even cough. It hurts. I'm sure I'll feel better in the morning when I wake up all stiff and busted up. I'm not looking forward to it compared to what I feel like tonight here. By creating so-called highways, superhighways, 200 square miles, 520 square kilometers, planting native hedgerows, restoring grasslands, creating ponds and wetlands. Where did all the insects go? Did you really think that's going to change what happened after Fukushima? Insect populations have seen an alarming decline in abundance and species richness in recent years. Nearly all of us have noticed a drop in butterflies visiting our gardens, less moths around the street lights, and far fewer insects on our cars. Very vague when you say that, isn't it? I like to say to people I know, when was the last time you had to clean your windshield because of insects in the United Kingdom or Canada or United States? We used to take calls from truck drivers in like 2016, 2017, I think it was. And they would drive right across the country. And some of them were listening to the podcast and they were like, oh, next time I stop the truck, I'm going to have a look. I think Durnford's wrong. It turns out I'm not. They were shocked. A lot of them were shocked. It was just, there's a lot of people that thought they were going to debunk me by going down to the local beaches, and they were quite shocked. You can call into these shows. I didn't put the number up tonight. I'm way off my game. I'm Dana, by the way. You can call in at 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. I hope you had a great day so far. Let's keep going after it here. So you're going to build an insect superhighway, but you don't have any insects. Well, you have insects, but not very many. You can build all the superhighways you want, but if you don't have insects, it's not a superhighway, is it? Protecting pollinators by reducing pesticides. The problem with the pollinators is they're bringing back radioactive pollen. Because after Fukushima's pulse event, almost all the plants on the planet are trees included, are producing radioactive pollen and will for millions of years. So the pollinators are taking, like the bees and that, and wasps, are taking that back to their hives and contaminating the hives and sterilizing the queens, right? And so it only takes a few generations and they disappear at that rate. Like 200,000 species are considered pollinators. So like a lot of flies are considered pollinators. And virtually all seed plants must be pollinated. From wildflowers to cone-bearing plants and trees. 80% of the 1,400 crop plants that produce our foods and plant-based industries produced globally. It used to be 7,500 species. In Canada, it's only 7 farm species, or farm, like corn and stuff like that, and canola, all GMO, of course. Insect population began plummeting after all the nuclear testing in the 90s. Scientists set the record straight on one of Earth's most common insects could be catastrophic. This study shows us we have entire regions that could lose their primary pollinators. It's flies. We lost most of our keystone species post-Fukushima worldwide. Like mosquitoes. Because frogs and fish and dragonflies and all kinds of birds, etc., depend upon the mosquitoes. Flies might not come to mind when you think of threatened species in need of protection, but research has proven that they're a vital part of our ecosystem. We don't need research to prove that. Let me see here. It doesn't look like I'm streaming properly. Is the stream okay? I'm going to go to the comments section here. Is there any problems with the stream? Was it dropping or something? Let's go back over here to see. Looks like it's streaming okay now. What's going on here? I only got 11 viewers. I got 25 votes and 11 viewers, eh? That's interesting. No censorship there, I'm sure. Has Fukushima radioactive fallout broken the food chain worldwide, leading to mass species human die-offs? Oh, that's right too. We wanted to see if I'm streaming okay. Hi, everybody. I'm seeing, is the stream okay, you guys? I'm just going to hang on a second here. I'm just checking the comment section. Because I was getting a yellow warning on my control room. Because YouTube, I get a separate control room you don't really get to see, right? It was showing, it looks okay now. It says I'm streaming. Streaming connection is excellent. Excellent connection, so, but it wasn't just now. I don't see anybody in the comments section saying anything, so I guess it's okay. Let me see here. No comments at all. Is that because there's no stream, or what's going on here? I'm just going to hang on. I'm just waiting for someone in the comments section to tell me everything is good or everything is crazy. And if nobody's talking to me, does that mean I'm streaming, I wonder? Because it says I'm streaming now. Oh, not good. I'm sure I'll be great in the morning when I wake up. My experience is that's usually not how it works. James sent me a message. Yeah, it's working. Okay, James. Thank you. Good stuff. Alright, let me try to get back on track here. Flies might not come to mind when you think of a threatened species in need of protection, but research has proven that they're a vital part of our ecology. It may seem like there's plenty of flies buzzing around everywhere, but they're actually facing the risk from rising global temperature. And what we've seen post-Fukushima is the temperature rise worldwide. We're seeing the Earth is not soaking up water because the bacteria and the fungus got decimated by the massive radioactive fallout from Japan. But, it's got 80 years at this stage from the nuclear industry of emissions. There's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide still splitting atoms. Like, think of thousands of reactor cores splitting atoms, not to power each to power. So each reactor core could split atoms to power a million homes and businesses. And after 14 months, a large chunk of it goes into the fuel pool, where it's still splitting atoms for 1 million homes and businesses, but there's no containment. And that's released all day long from 1,000 fuel pools directly into the environment. And so you don't need nuclear meltdowns to have an extinction event. You just need 1,000 fuel pools splitting atoms into your environment. And that's why fuel is dangerous. It's splitting atoms for millions of years. And they have no way of containing it, so they just disguised it. And they told you, oh, the fuel's in the fuel pool, it's nice and safe. What they didn't tell you was it's splitting each reactor core. A typical fuel pool at this stage would have, say, 4 reactor cores in it. And each reactor core is still splitting the same amount of atoms as you would to boil water to power 1 million homes and businesses. But there's no containment anymore. Because the reactor has a so-called containment, but it also has the torus where it can burp out huge amounts of radiation when there's a problem that people are not aware of that. And reactors they have incinerators on every nuclear site, and they also have drains, massive drains going out into the ocean where they're legally allowed to dump radiation. And because it's all done under secrecy laws since the Manhattan Project, very little is known. Very little is known. And so after Fukushima, we've seen a dramatic rise in the temperatures of the oceans and lakes and streams and forests. And the forest, because you killed the bacteria and the fungus, meant you destroyed the biota, which breaks down the foliage and the litter. And what happens is, without that particular ecosystem, the earth, that system also needs rainwater to work, right? And because you destroyed that ecosystem, the earth is not soaking, the forests and the meadows are not soaking up water. And so now when you have rain, you have flash floods. And when you have thunder and lightning, you have massive forest fires because you have all this foliage and litter that didn't break down. And that wafers thousands of feet, and you get this big chunk of fire will fall down. Where normally, see, that wouldn't exist, right? So now when you're having lightning strikes, you have forest fires that are showing up everywhere, and that's how that works. We know this from Chernobyl, by the way. But we also know it now because we've been studying this, dedicated to this now for 13 years, post-Fukushima. I've been at it for 23 years, nuclear. Both insects are crucial pollinators that contribute to diversity, health, reproduction of wild plants, agricultural crops. But you need bacteria and fungus. for the root system to work, right? And you need water. It's time we gave flies some more recognition for the role as pollinators. It is true, right? 75% of all crops are dependent upon pollinators. In alpine and the subarctic environment, flies are the primary pollinators. So in the really cold zones, the pollinators are basically flies. And we have entire regions that could lose their primary pollinators as the climate warms. Well, the global warming has been going on since the nuclear testing. The nuclear testing was a nuclear war. It's the same bombs, the same radioactive fallout. And so it's very confusing because, say there's 2,000 nuclear weapons been tested. So Nagasaki was one of them, right? But so was Castle Bravo. And Castle Bravo, though, was equal to 1,000 Nagasakis. And so if you conflate all the nuclear bombs into megawatts, you ended up with around, and don't quote me on the exact number, but around 33,000 Nagasaki bombs have been detonated on this planet. And so the French Polynesians, for instance, from the French government, just the French government's testing, because they do different sizes of bombs, right? But they're only considered one bomb. And the Soviet Union, for instance, had a single bomb was equal to 3,800 Nagasaki bombs. But the French Polynesian islands, the natives, was equal to around a Nagasaki bomb a week for 12 years in radioactive fallout. That's what the French done to them. And I think it's 11 administrations has refused to acknowledge any kind of adverse side effects from the radiation, it shows you this generational contempt for the nuclear industry. We have entire regions could lose their primary pollinators as the climate warms. Vaccinate plants against insects and diseases. Sorry, my apologies. See, I had fell down 2 months ago and screwed up my knee, my elbow, and my back. And my elbow's still screwed up. Now my back is screwed up again. It took a long time for my knee to recover. And my arm was just starting to recover, just starting to finally get it under control in a group today. Take a bashing. A little bit depressing, I would say. I'll bounce back, though. It might take a little while, but I'll be bouncing back. There's nothing more important than the radioactive fallout from Fukushima and 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. Vaccinate plants against insects and diseases. Hank the Scumbag Campbell. That's absurd. That's an absurd headline. I actually got really upset when I seen that headline today. It's a headline from January 24th of this year. I only found it today. Vaccinate plants. And when I seen it, just like I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I was just, I won't say angry. I don't think that's the right word. I was definitely upset though when I seen that connotation, but it got worse. And so here, that made good news for science and plants. If GMO that prevent diseases, if GMO prevents diseases, so the way they framed that narrative, right? The grammar was like I'm pretty sure if you play it backwards, you'll get some satanic message, but. If GMO prevents disease, like in the rainbow papaya, are called vaccines. So if you call GMO vaccines, the old controversy will go away. So he's promoting GMO. Sick bastard. Combined with weed killers, insecticides, and other mitigation strategies, it could allay fears about chemicals and genetic engineering if activists are truly over their fear of vaccines. So disgusted with that story that if he lived here, I would have went and visited him today, got in his face, because that's a very dangerous thing, what he's doing there. EU introduces a regulation permitting bugs in bread and cake. They show maggots on a cake. Some sick stuff, man. The regulation was adopted by the European Commission and personally signed by Ursula von der Leyen. And we've seen that the EU Parliament, which is like 900 parliamentary members or something, they're all appointed. None of them are elected. And she's literally a Nazi in every sense of that word. However, their exoskeletons are made of chitin, which humans struggle to digest. And following new regulations on bread and rolls sold within the EU, they'll be able to legally contain 4 grams of mealworms per 100 gram of bread, and cakes, 3.5 grams of larvae per 100 grams of cake. 3.5 grams of maggots per cake, or per 100 grams. 100 grams is not very much, right? Hard cases. Because the species are dying post-Fukushima, all of them. And us too, right? Insect food market is losing its buzz. That's about the only good story. But they'll still manage to shove it down your throat. They'll put it in your bread. They'll put it in your cake, right? Caught on camera, a neighbor steps in to help a man during bear attack. Apparently the animal was looking for food. It was starving to death. This story, if you're faint of heart, you probably don't want to watch this or hear this particular one. It'll take me about a minute to get through it. I'm going to start right now. It's a really frightening story. She was, and I'm going to start right now, so most people probably don't want to hear what I got to say, but it was a terrible story. Her and her uncle were both killed, were both injured by the bear, and it was a mother bear, and the mother bear was consuming her, eating her, while she was still alive, and she had phoned her mom. I was talking to her mom. Then shortly after, the police nest showed up, but she was already dead. And they got pictures of the bears. Allegedly, this is the bears. I don't know if that's true or not. Those bears are not very healthy, by the way. She rang her mom a number of times. On a second call, said the bears are back, and they brought their 3 babies, and they were eating her. She was alive. Eventually, they arrived with the police to find her dead, and that the mother bear was eating her stepdad. If that's not a horror story, I don't know what is. What do you say to your loved one when they call you up and that's happening? I'll never know. World Migratory Bird Day 2024. Protect insects to protect the birds. Get rid of nuclear to protect humans and the species in the future generations. So here's what Fukushima looks like after 20 days. That's 20 days of radioactive fallout from the Norwegian Institute of Air Research. This model is going to be based, when the model stops, will be based on 30 days of radioactive fallout from the French government of cesium-137. It's 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air covering the entire planet. This is day 20 right there. And cesium-137 pulses energy 600 feet. So that contaminated all the fresh water, all the salt water, every speck of the planet, and by proxy, every insect. And every forest now is getting full body x-rays, so sterilizing the insects. And if that's not going to be in the equation from these stories, then they're misrepresenting what is the biggest part of the issue, right? This never goes away. And then that's the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rod is curium isotopes. And curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for the plutonium. And plutonium was named after the devil because it's so lethal. And typical plutonium contamination, you're going to end up with 3 tumors. The skeleton is the biggest amount of tumors. Death, rather, from skeleton, and then the liver, and then, or the lungs, and then the liver. But what we know about this, we got studies on all kinds of other isotopes in the same plume. It's not just going to be a cesium-137 plume. It's basically going to have up to 1,000 different types of fission products in the same plume. And so there was 220 million atoms, we know from an Ottawa study, covered North America, Canada, United States. 220 million atoms per liter of rainfall sustained for months of iodine-129. And the impact upon the insects and birds from that type and that amount and that quantity and that much, that prolific amount that we're talking about, sustained, it never goes away. Iodine-129 is around for 150 million years. World Migratory Bird Day 2024. Protect insects to protect birds. Well, there is no insects to protect now. We destroyed the whole biosphere for 80 years of nuclear, but Fukushima was a pulse event. Fukushima was a pulse event. Let me see here. We got 15 viewers on a show we've been doing for a decade. We got 27 thumbs up and 24 likes. We're almost an hour in. I'm still holding it together. There's some serious censorship, though. That's not unusual, unfortunately, for me. Calls for more action to protect the decreasing population of insects. The World Migratory Bird Day highlights the importance of insects for migratory birds. There was 3 years ago, there was millions of small insect migratory birds dropping dead across the United States. And there was 192 species. And they were emaciated. They had no body fat left or muscle mass left on them and nothing in their stomach whatsoever. They were on their migratory route. And that kind of stuff is very important because it, and of course back 3 years ago there was no mention at all of the so-called avian influenzas, right, for that story. And I'm not sure if I can find that story right now. Not exactly in my the best shape I've been in for a while or nothing. Let me have one little go at it though. Yeah, I'm never going to find that tonight. It's such an important story for tonight. We covered, not last night's show, but the show before that was a perfect introduction to tonight's show, for instance. Well, just hang on 1 second here, actually. So on the research expeditions that I done for 6 years, went from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. And the species to your left now never came back. We went back for 5 more years. The species didn't show back up. That's an extinction event, right? And the species to your left, you'll never take those pictures again. And that's why we've done it year after year. The species to your left are missing. So they're officially exterminated. We know there's unusual mortality events for many different species. And then the number of whales that actually died in boat strikes was 1,200 whales in 2023. From 2007 to 2023 was around 1,200 whales. But not all of them would have died or something. You know, and suggesting that the windmills caused 70 massive grey whales become emaciated is insane. So this study I showed you earlier, right? That's this study here. This is cesium-137. Radiation levels in the United States West Coast spiked to over 1 million times normal, to 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. So this is an unbelievable amount. We got a xenon study, 133. In Washington, it was 450,000 atoms per cubic meter of air, I believe it was, after 20 days. They were saying that the bears were emaciated because of lack of salmon, but bears eat grubs, they eat grass, they eat caribou, they eat elk, they'll eat deer, they eat other bears. They're foragers. They'll eat 200,000 berries a day. The biggest part of their diet is actually berries. And berries bioaccumulate radiation dramatically. You should avoid that and eating a lot of it anyway. Avoid that and mushrooms. They're nasty stuff. Krill, which is a major migratory species. They're like they're like the size of your thumb, and they live up to 10 years. They're like big shrimp, right? The migratory species are very dependent upon them. And remember, in 2014, 15, 16, and 17, when they found dead polar whales, they always reported on their stomachs, and they had empty stomachs up in the lower Keys on Monday. But that was true also in the Everglades. They also had empty stomachs. There was 3,500 whale or 3,500 sea lions. They said died of the bird flu last year or 2023. But the pictures they're showing you is long-term emaciation. They died of starvation. And the other pictures they show you is even worse emaciation. We've never seen anything like that. And I used to dive with up to 300 of them every day for years and years as a commercial diver. I've never seen anything like this. But we have seen it post-Fukushima. We have endless amounts of headlines of emaciated seals and emaciated sea lions. The radioactive plumes covered the entire planet. This was a xenon-133 at 1 million atoms per square meter, underground. And that's one of the models at 20 days. We've seen all the birds, starvation, not bird flu, caused mass deaths. Starvation. And there was many different species, right? Seagulls, ducks, terns, cormorants, common murres, Cassini auklets. And at the same time as the common murre, there was 1 million of common murres showed up. And they dive 600 feet all day long and feed on anchovies and squid and sardines and krill. They were showing up emaciated. I mean, they dive 600 feet all day. If they can't find food, it's not there, right? And at the same time, there was 1.4 million of the Cassini auklets were showed up, emaciated. And they eat microscopic animals, zooplankton, phytoplankton, stuff like that. They're what they call skimmers. So 2 completely different spectrums of the food chain showing up emaciated at the same time. And there was nothing left in the tidal zones, only a couple of algae. There was nothing left in the tidal zones, we know from my research expeditions, for the birds to supplement their diets on, right? The only thing there was kelp weed and kelp cabbage. Actually, James Lucid had done a music video in the last week here. Let me see if I can find it. And he got it right. The only thing he showed on the beach was kelp weed. Yeah, the scientists and their blob. Just amazing song too, man. That's a hit song, that particular one. Okay, let's keep going here. But that was a really good catch. When I seen that in the video, I was like, wow, man. That's crazy. That is crazy. All right, here we go again. World Migratory Day, protect the insects, protect the birds. Close down the nuclear fuel pools to protect the birds. Contain the nuclear fuel so it's not splitting atoms into the environment anymore. That's the only hope we got for the species in the future, right? Some brutal censorship though tonight, isn't it? Holy shit, look at that. Still only 13, 14 viewers. I haven't gained a single subscriber in the last 2 weeks. My other channel they took down had 24,800 subscribers for 5 years, 4 years. I never gained one, never lost one for 4 years. And when I was out on a field study looking for spiders, YouTube took my channel down because I was reporting that the spiders were all missing, right? I'm not a bad person for doing the right thing, okay? Just because they manipulate people, they don't share my videos out there and stuff like that. The industry is hiding me from everybody. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person. That doesn't mean that my research is not legitimate. It doesn't mean that we don't have the moral and ethical high grounds, okay? They can't take that away from us. We have the moral and ethical high ground. We are the only ones that I know publicly sharing and doing the actual field studies and the work. And I'm doing the best I can, right? I'm struggling every day to keep things together. It's very difficult to move ahead when we have such little support and that the world doesn't know we exist. They will at some point. And to call this industry cowards is being generous, right? You're being kind to call the nuclear industry a coward. You're being polite. That's polite. Because when the world finds out what the nuclear industry has done and continues to do, I can guarantee you polite won't be part of that equation. Let me just introduce you to one of the most craziest things you'll ever see. In fact, I'll play the video. I made this video a little over 10 years ago. And this is just I'll get it out of the way. This is just a fraction of the media. They're claiming they're 150 feet above the stump to your left at Fukushima. Because they don't want the nuclear industry to be blamed for the mass species die-off. So they're pretending the reactor cores in the 2 fuel pools at the top of the building is still there. I'll turn it up. I'm going to start it again, but I'm going to turn it all the way up.
Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
So if you think they're not in the fuel pool, if you think they're faking it, give me a thumbs up. And email this video to your friends and families and loved ones. And you can just copy on the video at this point, and then you can send it to them, and when they play the video, it'll show them that picture, and ask them, why do they think the media is pretending they're on top of a nuclear meltdown that doesn't, in a part of a building, claiming they're at the fuel pools 190 feet up in the air, which doesn't exist anymore. That's what you should be doing. That's horrifying censorship. There are 14 people on my show. Scientists sound the alarm after whales' death signals a worrisome behavior change. The ocean seems to be changing. As water warms and the food source shifts, marine animals are seen in unexpected places. The only thing left on that beach is a few algae. British Columbia went from 700 algae to 2. And in those 700 algae were 5,500 invertebrates without the backbones. A humpback whale's unexpected appearance and subsequent death in Nova Scotia river, fresh water, has marine experts pondering the effects of our changing climate on ocean life. Yet the whales are, and we got quite a few stories over the last 3 years, 4 years, of whales being found way up the Shubenacadie River. 4 days later, it was found dead. But nobody could believe it. What was the whale doing so far up these rivers? And we've heard that story quite a bit now over the last number of years. We've covered. This event followed a string of unexpected whale sightings in the area, including an endangered blue whale in St. Mary's Bay, a minke whale in the Shubenacadie River just last month, the same river. And then they had I believe this was a humpback whale, went all the way up the river and died on one of the mud flats. These out-of-place whale sightings are raising eyebrows among marine experts. All of them are refusing to put Fukushima into the equation. The ocean seems to be changing. The food is changing. The food quality is changing. And the animals themselves, their health, and so it does raise some alarm. What do you mean some alarm? Like, the research expeditions that I've done for 6 years, it's an extinction event. Not maybe, not perhaps, not almost. That's an extinction event. Possibly in search of food. So they're going way up rivers looking for food. About 200 polar bears gathered near the dead whale that washed ashore. And even from this distance, you can see that some of them are looking very unhealthy. That one in particular, you can tell clearly is not healthy, and certainly that one back there. But 200 polar bears showed up because a whale washed up on the beach. Let me get out of the way. There's some beautiful pictures. But you can clearly see quite a few of these are not very healthy at all. And you might even call them, some of them, emaciated. Unfortunately, it's not a very high quality picture. But I just love seeing them anyway. To me, it's incredible. But clearly, if they're all showing up for a single whale, that food chain is broken, right? Sailing off the coast up in Russia, when he saw in the distance what looked like a patch of unmelted snow. And then he seen the bears coming down the hill. These bears are looking really good. But what's the odds of that many bears showing up at the one place? hopes are high for stranded humpback whale after refloating. Well, he's clearly got a peanut head. He's emaciated, that feller. And you can see the bones and ribs sticking right out of him. But that's a clear peanut head. That's emaciation. He's emaciated. South Scotland coastline will make a full recovery. I don't think so. When they got a peanut head, they're on their way downhill, right? That's a peanut head for sure. Checks the following day found no sign, and a big whale like that, a big whale like this, you're going to damage their organs, right? So he sank, or she sank, whatever. They checked, they didn't see it. The medics were checking. Actually, I made some pictures. Shitty, not very good pictures though today for some reason. Just bear with me. I forgot to import them. I screwed up a lot of stuff tonight anyway, so one more is no big deal. I've definitely had better days. Tomorrow will be a bit rough. I'll get better over next week or something, hopefully. I know one thing, I can't keep taking smacks like I've been taking the last year or so. I'm taking a few hard whacks. Falling down on rock. It was so cold. Minus 16 wind chill out there this morning. So that ice was just solid. Well, at least it didn't hit my head. I was trying to protect my head when I hit the ground. I got away with it, but it looks like that much anyway. There we go. We're back in business here now in a minute. La 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 la. We're almost ready. Just waiting for that to populate itself there right now. I take a minute. These are not medics. You can't do anything to a humpback whale and quantify it as being a medic. And I disrespect them for even suggesting that they're medics. I really, the British Divers Marine Life Rescue, I completely disrespect. That's what I think of these people. They think of themselves as superheroes. They really do, right? They see themselves as something special for some reason. You can see all the ribs sticking out of their body, eh? It's hard to know what to make of them, these so-called medics. I really disrespect them, the British Marine Rescue, whatever they call themselves. We've covered a lot of their stories over the years. They're nothing to be proud of. They always scream climate change and crap. We hope that humpback would have died right away. It was emaciated. They didn't get it back in the water. Look how far away it's from the water. It's up in the mudflats, right? Its organs are crushed. It's emaciated, and so when it got back out in the deep water, it died. It sank. Like the typical, 9 out of every 10 will sink, right? It sank. Insects are disappearing, and we should be very worried. The creatures act as a lubricant in the machine of life. That's a terrible thing to say about it. The most important species to pollinate it. From pollinating vital crops to managing organic waste on a continental scale. And they equate them with the oil. Just let me get rid of everything I already got piled up here that we already covered, because that way if I blink off accidentally I can find my way back. I'm never going to get through all of this tonight. Let's keep going though. There's so many stories. I screwed up, right? I got a bit lazy. We didn't get to it. The problem is the insects are disappearing quickly, quite quickly. Time is running out. Southern residents, it's up in Washington, Canadian, and British Columbia and Seattle area, 2 killer whales and a blow to the population. Emaciated. Emaciated. Emaciated killer whales. Well, go figure, eh? Are missing and presumed dead. Were last seen emaciated. That's a crazy statement, isn't it? Were last seen emaciated. My goodness. How does a killer whale... And let me see if I can find it. I'm pretty sure I'll find it. Just give me a minute. What a killer whale eats. Let me try that again. I screwed that up. One more try. Only thing is, when I type in killer whales in my computer, I get the dictionary thrown at me. Here we go. Orcas are the apex predators at the top of the food chain, and no other animal except for humans hunt the orcas. Killer whales feed on seabirds, squid, octopus, sea turtles, sharks, rays, fish, halibut, you name it. They eat most marine mammals, seals, sea lions, otters, dolphins, sharks, whales, bony fish. The number of species consumed worldwide by orcas is around 140. So if they don't find their favorite food, what's the odds they're going to eat something else? Or will they just go on a hunger strike? Because that's what they want you to believe in British Columbia. The whales went on a hunger strike. Emaciated. Both of them were emaciated, the mother and the calf. Extinction is around the corner, yeah. Rarely seen whale washes up near coastal resort. The southerly beaked whale was recovered from the sea near Dorset coast. Well, you'll never see them on the coastlines. They're deep sea divers. They feed mostly on squid. And the southerly, the covert beaked whales in this same area that you should never encounter, they found over 1,000 of them in different stages of decomposition. And we covered it. That was 2018, I believe, 2019 or something. And so they estimated it was 10,000 of the covert beak whales had died. And the Southerby beak whales would have been in the same area. Whales may have starved to death. And they got a million excuses for why it starved to death. But pre-Fukushima nuclear meltdowns, this was not something you ever heard of, whales starving to death, or seals or sea lions, or millions of birds at a time. And I mean, like 3 years ago, the birds in the United States, the insect population, migratory birds, there was 192 different species were found out of the millions of dead birds that showed up all over the place. They were all emaciated. That was heavily reported on. The lives of the Southerby beaked whales not well studied due to the difficulty of observing them. They're rarely seen at sea. Although there have been more than 100 strandings around the British coastline since 1913, yeah, the majority of them were post-Fukushima, weren't they now? Or all of them was post-Fukushima, if I remember correctly. Death of deep diving whales investigated. There's so many. It's unbelievable what we're seeing of whales, emaciated whales. Scientists are investigating the death of 2 Southerby beak whales after they stranded on the beach. So that's 2 more. There's 2 more that showed up. Suggested had stranded alive, and the other one stranded 20 miles away. But when you're looking at his head, it sure looks like an emaciation case to me. See that incredible indentation? The bones are sticking up. Lost sperm whale stranded may have had brain problems. Really, eh? That's a peanut head you're looking at, by the way, from emaciation. And they even said that it was in good health and had been feeding well, with evidence of squid beaks in the stomach. Well, if all of it had in the stomach is squid beaks and no squid, it's not feeding well. And it's not supposed to be in that part of the country, period. They've never seen sperm whales there pre-Fukushima on top of that. And not know if it contributed to it. There may be a problem with his brain, but it's not known if this was contributed to his straying, rather, in the Moray Cliff. That's a peanut head. That's emaciated. You can tell by the back of him, too. That's a peanut. What they call a peanut head. He's emaciated. There was no evidence he swallowed plastic. I just really despise the British academic community. I despise them and the journalists. I literally hate their guts. They're scumbags, eh? Pilot whale stranding at Tasmanian harbour sees 4 whales dead, 25 rescued, as a cruise boat is called to help. Yeah, well, we're seeing an overwhelming amount of them stranding in Tasmania and in New Zealand. Australia rather. Because Tasmania is Australia, isn't it? Or New Zealand, rather. I'll get there. Not my best night. A cruise vessel as well as fish farm and wildlife park vessels help block off the harbour and shepherd them out to deeper water. They were emaciated, most likely. They were desperate at the beach. That's the typical scenario. They don't normally come into the bay, they said. Why is she smiling? In September 2022, we covered all of these, of course. Over 200 pilot whales died during a mass whale stranding at the entrance to the harbour. They got a million, like in 2000, I showed you earlier, in 2014, but in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, we were covering all of this. And they were always reporting that they had empty stomachs or they were emaciated. After that, they stopped reporting on the health of the whales and started conflating it with, oh, it's normal, right, for polar whales to strand, but it wasn't. Like, yes, it's true they have stranded in groups before, but it wasn't prolific constantly everywhere all the time, because otherwise there'd be none left, right? And we know from the earlier years post-Fukushima that the whales were typically had empty stomachs, all of them. But they stopped reporting on it around 2018. Exactly 2 years earlier to the day of stranding in 2020 of 470 polar whales happened in sheltered waters of the harbors. We covered that when it happened too for days. And is now considered the worst stranding event in Australia history. But then just before that they had a several hundred strand also in Australia, right? Just a few months before that. And that's their migratory turnaround point is New Zealand. So when they found no food along the way. They found no food when they got to their migratory destination, and so they were emaciated and they stranded in desperation. Minke whale found dead on Cape Cod shore. And Cape Cod, post-Fukushima, is getting an enormous amount of strandings, dead whales and dead seals and sea lions. Why they got it covered in a tarp for? It's dead. Previous minke whale deaths on Cape Shore, with some frequency post-Fukushima, including 2020 and 2019 and 2018. These are post-Fukushima stories. If it was normal, why wouldn't they give us numbers pre-Fukushima? Oh, that's right, because it wasn't happening. According to NOAA, since 2017, elevated minke whale mortalities have occurred along the Atlantic coast from Maine through South Carolina. The agency has termed this an unusual mortality event, with 188 minke whales reported stranded and deceased along the East Coast from 2017 to 2024. All right, 6 years after Fukushima. All of these unusual mortality events we're talking about are post-Fukushima. Thousands of dead seabirds are washing up on the Australia beaches. Each spring, about 20 million shearwaters fly 15,000 kilometers to Australia. I love the shearwater. They're missing from the Atlantic down here. This year, beachgoers are finding many emaciated carcasses. Many emaciated carcasses. Washed up and dying on the beaches was in the hundreds of thousands this year. Was in the hundreds of thousands emaciated birds. Shearwaters. Shearwaters are blue water migratory birds. They're incredible to watch because of their ability to float with the draft of the water, of the wind close to the ocean surface. I'm very familiar with them. Birds that were washing up were emaciated, which indicated the animals were struggling to find enough food. No, if they're emaciated, they were finding no food. That's what emaciation means. Their muscle mass and their fat reserves were gone. The birds were emaciated. That tells the story itself. You don't need the stupid, despicable journalists to tell us anything. Whether or not there's actually more mortalities than there were in the past is very difficult to quantify. Estimate the numbers of adult seabird washing up or dying on the beaches were in the hundreds of thousands this year, based on early analysts. Well, if that's what you find washing up, how many died on the trip, on the migratory trip, see? How many didn't make it? The birds that were washing up were emaciated. From Alaska, now this article was 4 years old. From Alaska to Australia, anxious observers fear mass shearwater deaths. Washed up carcasses, late arrivals, and low numbers have conservationists worried. That's 2019, just so you know. So it's not like this hadn't happened, but these are post-Fukushima, all right? Dates. Thousands of dead short-tailed shearwaters washed up on remote beaches. They didn't test positive for diseases or toxins. And you notice they don't mention avian influenza in any of these stories. They were severely emaciated. The birds had starved. Uh, 2024 November, bird flu decimated the seals, leaving grim scenes of dead animals. But I showed you earlier, about 20 minutes ago, 3,500 sea lions were emaciated. Clearly in the pictures, it was vicious emaciation. And they were saying they died of bird flu. But bird flu attacks the brain allegedly right away, right? The animals don't end up, it takes a very long time for a seal or a sea lion to end up being emaciated to the incredible severity that we were looking at just now. In 2023, a highly pathogenic bird flu leaped to seals in South America, killing 17,000 elephant seal pups, 97% of the vulnerable animals. Well, the seal pups were abandoned. We covered it, right? They were abandoned because there was no food. It wasn't avian influenza. That would have killed the adults too. It wouldn't have just been the pups. And it would have killed the other species, not just elephant seals, okay? Fin whale, nearly 50 feet long, washes ashore in Anchorage tidal flats. We covered a story where there was 30 whales in just a 2-month period washed up in Anchorage, Alaska area, which meant at least 300 would have died because you only find 10%, right? Fin whale washes, a 50-foot fin whale washes up in the tidal flats right in the city. There's they follow food, but I'm not sure what it was following this time of the year. It was desperation. They're fairly uncommon in the Nick Arm, but at least a couple of them have washed up in south central Alaska. Well, that's post-Fukushima now, isn't it? That's a pretty thin-looking tail. And you see the mountains don't have glaciers, they have snowpack. Because we showed that on the 6-year research expeditions that the glaciers disappeared in that period, in that 6-year time frame post-Fukushima. Stunning 47-foot fin whale washes up near Anchorage. This is a different one, lagoon in fresh water. That one's emaciated. What's she smiling about? Let's look at it. Inside the whale's mouth, smiling. These people are idiots, aren't they? It does happen, but it's very infrequent to have large whales in the upper inlets swimming or beached. Very infrequent to have them in the upper inlets swimming or dead, right? Let alone dead, I should say. In 2016, 2 fin whales were found dead in south central Alaska waters. One was struck by a cruise ship and found on the ship's bow when it docked in Stewart. Like, first off, a whale is not stupid. If you struck a whale, it's because it was dead. River otter attacks baffles authorities in Anchorage, Alaska. We're seeing that now here in Canada, by the way. Exhibiting unusual behaviors after a woman, a boy, and a dog are bitten by a river otter. It's driving people away from its food source, right? Residents of Alaska used to live alongside a moose and bear. Now face a threat from a more diminished creature, the humble river otter. Attack dogs, children, adults near the creeks, rivers, and lakes. So it's not just one little area. We're seeing the behavior of many, many different river otters. Attack the other ways are not. It's not normal at all, right? Last week, a woman was bitten while rescuing her dog from otters at a lake. The same day, in another part of the city, a group of otters attacked another dog. They're trying to kill it when you see that going on. They want to eat it. And they can't find any food. Guess what happens? Earlier this month, a 9-year-old boy went to the emergency room after 4 otters chased him and his friends while they were playing near a duck pond in East Anchorage. They were predatory. They were looking for food. So this was another one where they had an otter. It was covered in porcupine quills. And the two species rarely interact because they prefer water and land. So the otter was starving most likely and went after the porcupine. Didn't realize, because it's not normal for them, right, to interact, that it had spines. Beer raids on Krispy Kreme. Invaders loot Alaska donut truck. You got bears invading a donut truck. Wow. Like, there's a lot of stories that I can't fit below the video, unfortunately. Test results in for bird flu for birds found dead with bloody eyes. State officials have determined the trauma, not avian flu trauma, caused the death of more than a dozen wild birds. And they always got to throw the word avian flu out there, haven't they? They told me there was no sign of avian flu and the birds were traumatized. That's why they passed away. 13 birds in your yard. That's kind of weird. Tote bag found in a dead whale during a necropsy. How does a tote bag get into a whale? It measured 90 by 52 centimeters. It's found in the digestive tract. The cause of the death and the exact species of the whale is not yet to be confirmed. So they didn't say that it had food in the stomach or anything like that. And whales are not stupid. A bag is not their preferred food. They don't just randomly, right? They have ways of filtering stuff like that out. It's likely to cause malnutrition over time as it's difficult for the whale to eat other things. So the whale was most likely emaciated. In desperation, it ate the bag, right? Synthetic bag found in the stomach of a whale that died after being stranded in Hong Kong, of all places. And I'm not seeing a lot of blubber, am I? That's severe emaciation right there, look. And how can a little whale like that eat a great big bag like that? Most likely, someone stuffed it in his throat when he was on the beach before the alleged the weirdos that calls themselves scientists went there. The whale had to be euthanized due to his condition. So, no, it was alive. And look at the emaciation of that whale. Holy shoo. So it probably ate the bag in desperation. It's an awful big bag for a little whale like this. That's a baby whale on top of that. That's what that one is. But that's severe emaciation. We don't know for sure, but typically post-Fukushima, we're pretty confident when we say they starved to death, and in desperation they ate something that they normally wouldn't eat. Yeah, that whale is still alive right there. 18-foot whale euthanized after washing up along the beach at Jersey Shore. Jersey's getting a lot of dead whales post-Fukushima, isn't it? All kinds of different species, too. It's a graveyard now for whales. The veterinarian determined the whale was lethargic and in thin body condition / emaciated. Thin body condition. You know, emaciated, right? Three dead whales washed ashore between Plymouth and Provincetown in under a week. They used to say the odds of a whale washing up, two whales on the same beach pre-Fukushima, was so astronomical that it was considered impossible. And now it's just normal post-Fukushima. That's the most normal thing imaginable, is multiple whales washing up on the same beach after Fukushima happened. It was unheard of before Fukushima. They don't know why 3 whales died in such a short period, but the deaths are unrelated. How can you say they're unrelated? You don't even know what they died of. Just disgusting garbage can diagnosis, eh? And you can clearly see that whale there is emaciated. That's emaciated. That's a mink whale. That's emaciation, for sure. It's a peanut head. The humpback found in Brewster on Saturday was likely killed in a head-on collision with a boat. There's been 1,200 whale boat collisions. Not all the whales would have died since 2007 to 2023. But according to the media, you would think every whale must have died with a boat. They throw almost every story, except for a few, they'll throw that narrative out there. It's a pattern we're seeing in all of these whales that are unfortunately dying in our water, the scumbag said. The degenerate, useless human said. Humpbacks have been experiencing an elevated mortality period since 2016, with boat collisions and entanglement accounting for most of the deaths. Really? Because that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing starvation as the leading cause of humpback whales and gray whales and mink whales and killer whales. And I'm doing my best to get through as much of this as I can, but $7,000 humpback whales had starved to death, not boat collisions. Right, so that bitch who wrote that or was quoted as that, she's a despicable piece of... Newborn orca calf spotted, raising a little hope for endangered southern resident killer whales. That's the one that now her mother carried him around for the last 17 days or something. She died, right? That's the same group, right? But that story's from back when. Experts reveal why so many dead birds are washing up on Lake Michigan shore. Yeah, there's no way we're going to get through the rest of this. Let me have a look here. Maybe. Well, let me see, yeah. Let's keep going. I think we'll get through it here. Experts reveal why so many dead birds are washing up on Lake Michigan shore. What's that story from? February the 3rd. That was 2 days ago. Reports over the weekends of ducks, red-breasted Meganasers or whatever, Canadian geese washing ashore. I got a picture of that coming up, I think. A large number of dead birds seen washing up in numerous beaches along Lake Michigan in Chicago. Officials believe, so it's an opinion, right, that bird flu. So that's an opinion. They don't have any facts to quantify that assertion whatsoever. Although they had not yet been tested for confirmation. It's hard not to hate these people, these scumbags that do that. The Illinois Department reminds the public not to handle the birds and or transport them to veterinarians, wildlife refuges, wildlife rehabilitations, because they might find that they're emaciated. And that would conflict with the government's official narrative, right? So there are ducks they were talking about too. It wasn't just ducks, there was quite a few species, right? They're unexpected as they're largely aquatic and don't typically walk around on land. So we had bird flu before. Really not this variety, nor this species, and certainly not the number of birds that are being found and reported. No, these people are just degenerates, eh? There's nothing they won't say for the industry. Any cases in the middle of December, largely geese in suburban areas, and continued in things like hawks and owls and bald eagles. Again, these are not backed up by facts. We've covered all of them stories. Since December the 3rd, there was 144 reported incidences like this one we're covering right now. Bird flu was spreading, killing millions of wild and domestic birds. Well, the domestic birds are killed by the government, right? Over the last 2 years, among other animals, not birds, but animals. Confirmed in dozens of dairy farms, yeah, but all of those samples went to the same laboratory. No independent testing is allowed. It's just the government does it. One person died of bird flu. A Louisiana man over the age of 65 who was hospitalized with respiratory symptoms, which is typical of radioactive fallout, by the way. A bald eagle found on a DuPage Street was euthanized after it was determined the animal was suffering from bird flu. So how could they determine right away it had bird flu? And why did they check for bird flu in the middle of nowhere? And bird flu is being cited as the cause of a single death of a flamingo and a harbor seal at a Lincoln Park Zoo. So if it was at the zoo, how come the other species didn't have it too? And how did it jump to a seal? It's a bird flu. According to the Center for Disease Control, who you probably should never trust, bird flu is a disease caused by avian influenza A virus that usually spreads between birds. Well, that's simply not 100% true, is it? Wild birds, chickens, turkeys, and again they say animals. It was first confirmed in U.S. dairy cattle in March. Right, we covered all of that. It was very suspect. And the mild signs and symptoms are typical of radiation poisoning too. Eye redness, irritation, mild fevers, cough, sore throats, runny, stuffy noses, muscles, body aches, headaches, fatigue. Less common symptoms are diarrhea, nausea, vomiting. All of these are hangovers or flu symptoms, by the way. Avian influenza found in dead birds across Finger Lake, including Tompkins County. And we already covered that story, didn't we? Grasshopper size shifts reveal climate change winners and losers. We hear that a lot post-Fukushima. A lot of species are getting smaller. As insect population decreases worldwide in what some have called an insect apocalypse. It's not some should call it. Everybody, if they knew what was going on, would describe it. And all of this is post-Fukushima. Quite interesting, isn't it? Dramatic drop in monarch butterfly counts near a record 30-year low. And you got to say the words like climate change, which is caused by 80 years of emissions from nuclear reactors. Because if you think about the radioactive fallout, it pulses energy at the speed of light every second. Carbon produces more insects. Carbon produces more plants, more trees, more biota, more animals, more humans. Radiation kills everything we're replicating cells. With just 9,000 monarchs in 2024, a decrease of 96%. Radioactive pollen to blame, I wonder. Designing robotic insects for mechanical pollinations. The new bots can hover for about 100 seconds. These are all the robotic insects. That's 100 times longer than previous demonstrations, about 40 seconds altogether. So how many plants is a mechanical insect going to pollinate 40 seconds? Oh, that's right, none. So I said, well, don't worry, they'll get there. They're crazy enough. They'll get there. The existing robots had only a lifetime at max about 40 seconds. Mountain lion attacks are on the rise. Yeah, well, when you kill everything in the forest, except for the predators at the top of the food chain, I wonder what happens. They come into the cities looking for food, pets and cats and dogs, and a random human if it gets in the way. Well, we made it. I didn't really think we were going to make it. I won't be back tomorrow night. I can pretty well say that with confidence right now. I'm busted up. I got a feeling tomorrow I won't be doing very good at all. Whatever. I'm used to it now. Just take my time and recover. I'm so stiff tonight I can't imagine what it's going to be like tomorrow for me. It's going to be nasty. So the whole night we only had 14 at best people on the show. We got 29 likes. If you make it this far, don't forget to give us a like. And we had 32 votes. Has Fukushima radioactive fallout broken the food chain worldwide, leading to mass species and human die-offs? Well, that's exactly what's happened. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, my Geiger counter's been hitting 300 regularly. Not necessarily during the shows or nothing, but some brutal numbers. There we go. We started off with one of James Lucid's songs. And we're gonna play another one here right now for a closer. That's the song I started off with, the Rolling Stewardship Blues. It's a wonderful song. I really, really, really like that song. We played it last night. It's a really great song. It's got that really cool feel to it, eh? James got so many great songs now, it's ridiculous, eh? I couldn't be more happier. That radioactive cream box, the manufacturing nuclear consent, Neptunium-239, the pink hydrogen, I just love that song. I got that in my head all the time. I'm looking for Dr. Sternglass there tonight. The Lost Shells, that's an amazing video, by the way. Medusa Gift Bags, Maralinga, these are all wonderful songs. Nuclear Jamaica is an amazing song. Nuclear Renaissance. I'm looking for Dr. Sternglass, actually. Let me find that. Did I pass it or something? It's amazing what he's after doing in such a short while. Dr. Sternglass right there. So that's an absolutely, that's got some great moments in that song. Really good rhythm. It's just and the videos, he does all the videos too. All his AI videos now are getting, I don't want to put any pressure on him, trying to outdo himself or something, but I mean, if he never does better than what he's doing right now, it's amazing. You know he's going to do better, obviously. It seems like every video he's doing better. And we'll come in and close the poll after. And that song is 5:58. 5:58. Just bear with me 1 second. Alrighty. Thanks for everybody. I guess we'll see, unless there's something big happens the weekend, I'll see everybody on Sunday. I'm going to take a few days to try to recover. Hopefully I'm back Sunday. It doesn't feel like it right now, but I'm pretty sure over the next couple of days I'll just go easy. I still got to get up and move around, though, because you'll never heal up if you just lay down all day. You got to get up and start doing little bits of exercises. So I'll I'll just go out and put tools away and stuff away in the shed tomorrow. I'll turn the heat on out there, and I got spiky stuff that slips on my shoes. I'm gonna start wearing them outdoors now. That's in less than 2 months. That's 2 major falls. I think I'm just getting old, man. We'll see everybody on the next show. Hugs for everybody. You can donate in the bottom of the description. There's 2 ways to donate. Well, I can't fight this on my own. People, if you don't help me, how do you expect me to make a difference? Really, there's a lot of people out there. You could donate something. It's not that hard to do. I've never had a problem with my site. At the bottom of my descriptions, you'll see 2 different ways. Preferably PayPal is the best way. And you'll see a direct link to my PayPal. You can't make a mistake. If not, don't worry about it. We'll keep going. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show, which I think is Sunday, hopefully.
Dr. Sternglass knew the risk. A silent war, invisible twist. From the fallout clouds to the gamma rays, he saw the truth in a poisoned haze. They laughed him off, they turned away, but the radiation never fades away. Dr. Sternglass, can you hear us now? We ignored the warnings, don't know how. We breathe it in, it's in the breeze. The slow decay brings us to our knees. In the quiet towns where secrets seep, the silent burn beneath our feet. Sternglass warned as the world moved on, but in the ground the danger's drawn. The truth he spoke, buried deep, as fallout spreads while the children sleeps away. Dr. Sternglass, can you hear us now? We ignored the warnings, don't know how. We breathe it in, it's in the breeze. The slow decay brings us to our knees. From Chernobyl's dust to Fukushima's tide, he showed the path where sickness hides. The rivers glow, the soil turned black, but the suits keep pushing, won't look back. The numbers grow, the cancer spreads, the media shrugs, the science dead. You can't feel it, can't see the burn, but Sternglass knew it's our turn. Radiation crawling through the land, while they cash in with bloodstained hands. It's in the rain, it's in the sea, it's creeping slow, too blind to see. They seal carried our poisoned fate. Babies born to a world unknown. Toxic dust